Meeting of the 25th of February 2016. What a beautiful day today, huh? Approval of agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to add one item on the agenda, and that would be mowing of the ball fields that are not on the list of the recreation department. I just want to add that on for discussion.
Okay, that
Where
would
we're going with that, I guess.
6
that would
F,
6F, okay, yeah,
huh?
great. That's it.
Okay. Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Conflict of interest declaration. Anybody have a conflict with any of the items on the agenda? If not, we'll go on to presentation is done. We're going to business arising from the minutes. Our fearless leader, Muse.
The second time he refers to me like that. I'm gonna have to correct him. I'm not sure. Oh, did I say that out loud? Oh, business arising from the minutes. So I think we had announced the Hibson Bridge piece would be done when the weather allows for a proper examination. So I think I said that at the last meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
The administration building is in front of you, or perhaps in front of you, is a document indicating the public meeting dates. So the first meeting is Thursday, the 3rd of March, Club Acadien, located at Club Acadien. Wednesday, March 9th, Wedgeport, Plymouth. That's at the Wedgeport Fire Hall. March the 10th, Thursday, at the Pubnico Argyle at the Lions Club, and that's for the Pubnicos and Argyle. The 14th of March, Monday, is at École Panamba, Tuscot, and the 31st of March at Kemptville, the East Kempt Fire Hall. So we have been advertising this and will be advertising this. All the councillors, of course, are encouraged to talk to your residents and try to get them interested. It'll be the same format or a very similar format to the meeting we had at the Twin Village Social Club, where
Okay.
the councillor opens and yeah. So that's pretty much it. The survey continues. There's 292 survey results that have come in. Much the same statistics that you've seen, so there's not much to report. We'd like to increase that percentage, and usually what happens is, not the percentage, but the amount, the number. What we'd like to do is get, usually what happens is when we have these meetings, people do actually fill out the forms, so we'll have forms at the meetings, and so you might get a dozen people that haven't submitted a survey at these meetings, and so, 12 times 5 is pretty good. I'd still like to get to 600, but that was quite aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it'd be no problem to get that,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Well, I mean, unless, when we said 600, we said, well, we would potentially go door to door. I mean, we'd go to that point if we really wanted to hit 600. That's probably how we would have to do it. I think that's it for business arising.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Or if not, we'll go on to the financial report. I think that's Madame Dale.
So attached into the agenda, you will find the financial report as of January 31st, 2016, with showing a projected surplus of $156,241. Just to highlight some of the larger variances, what I've been noticing is that it's basically the same. A lot of them are the same month after month, but on the income side, basically the only large variance is once again the D-transfer tax, showing a surplus of over $33,000. On the expense side, the largest one, if you see halfway down the page, is the healthcare, showing at over $82,000, which is a large chunk of that is the family residency, which we had budgeted for, however, is not going to happen this year. The other one is a savings in doctor recruitment. Also, you see, housing and RDA, there is some of the savings there, over 34,000. Some of that is the Starlight project that the actuals came out lower than the anticipated budget. Recreation has a savings, and a large portion of that is the summer students. Summer students get basically budgeted for well in advance, and then Jeanette goes out and finds grants and stuff like that. So, and then we kind of decrease some of the numbers in the students that we hired. And so there was some savings in that one. The courthouse has a projected surplus, and most of that is in, they had budgeted to purchase a new microfiche for the courthouse, which they will not be purchasing this year. They're hoping to purchase it next year. Other than that, there's other little variances, not a whole lot different. I'm not sure if there's any questions about any of the variances, but most of them are the same, month after month.
Mhm.
Is there any questions?
Any questions for Marcia? Yes, Councillor Surratt.
I've got a couple, Marcia. Extraordinary revenue. I see that, I guess it's not the surplus we have there. What is extraordinary revenue? What, again, I've been told before, but I guess I kind of forgot. This would be in your revenue side.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Some few things you might be able to throw at us.
yeah, for sure. I have my budget here, actually. Okay, so in there, there's, we bill the CSAP for the maintenance that we do on the track and field. So that one is in there. It's actually on page 5 of the complete document that you guys get on a quarterly
Yes.
basis. That I'm happy to forward you guys anytime.
Oh,
At
yeah.
any time if you want it every month, that's fine. The Historical Society refunds us for part of the heritage position.
Oh, I get you.
What else? Recreation programs, all the programs that they put on, that there's a fee associated with that, all of that revenue goes there.
Great.
What else do we have? Day camp, all the day camp revenue goes there.
All the daycare, oh my gosh, yeah, yes.
Tusket sewer and Pubnico sewer hookups, if there's any of the initial hookup fees, that's where
They
that
go in
goes
there.
as well. Active living program revenue, Société Bontemps, the Style
Oh,
designation of
yeah.
money that we received
Okay,
for that project. And also we have, HST rebate, the mileage, we can claim HST on the mileage and travel and
oh,
stuff.
okay,
So
right.
what's that?
Thank you, that's great.
You're welcome.
One more question, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Um,
Surratt.
I don't know if, how I'm gonna ask this question is, if I look maybe, let me try to get this straight. Transfers, okay, if I look on the revenue side, transfers from own reserves, we're $334,000, and I kind of remember the reason why. We're 334,000 over, I call it over, although it's in red on revenue. So if I flip and I go now to the expense side and transfer, I was thinking would be the same amount. If we didn't transfer it, we didn't take it out. I don't know if I allow I might be, if you're, so in other words, the revenue that come in, if we didn't use it or didn't spend it or didn't take it out, why would it not be shown in the expense side? If, so they both don't correlate the same thing. If you don't take one out, so if you get it in, you don't take it out there. I'm quite off there.
Well, I think I can start, and I think Marcia, you can fill in the gaps if that's okay. So
I know, sometimes I'm a little,
I think the problem is I think I know the answer, but I think Marcia can explain it better than I can. So the transfer from own reserves is almost entirely from our operating reserve, and it was for a variety of reasons. One of the biggest reasons was the Dominion Textiles
oh, yes.
project. Okay, so where you're confused or sort of
I am
asking a
confused,
question about, I shouldn't say that you're confused.
No, I am.
But you might be, but that's presumptuous of me to say that. But so that there's 250,000 that was supposed to come in from the reserve, and 250 that comes out of the line that you're referring to. So there's a transfer from, and then a transfer to. And the transfer to is the Industrial Commission, which is a subsidiary organization. But not the entire amount that's listed in the revenue from transfers from own sources, from own reserves,
Yeah,
relates to that. It's
No,
not
not everything.
entirely for that. So one of the biggest other items is the family residency project. Because we had budgeted for that in the previous year,
Yeah.
we weren't sure whether we're gonna have to spend it or not. We definitely didn't spend it last year. This year we didn't spend it, and now we know we're never gonna spend it. So that $60,000 or $70,000 was included as a transfer into the reserve last year, coming back from the reserve this year, but we never used it.
so it's gonna,
So the 250 plus the 70 accounts for almost all of that.
That's
Now,
right,
there's
you're
other
right.
little amounts there too,
Yeah.
but those are the two major differences.
it's perfect.
One of them isn't showing in the place you expect to see it.
Yeah,
That's what's happened.
that's what's happening. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Sorry, Mark, I was a little confused. I
And,
was about to
and
question.
I jumped in because it had to do with the Industrial Commission, and I had a little bit more
Right.
information on that.
That's
than-
great, thank
than-
you very much.
Yeah.
Now I understand, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Good, thank you. Do you want a motion to,
So I'll move to accept the
Accept.
financials as presented.
Second.
moved and seconded, all those in favor, aye? Opposed, nay? Motion carried. Then we go on to other business, road sign review. You speaking of that?
I can certainly
Yeah.
start. Chris has done a lot of work on this also. I'm just, my computer's a little slow here to open it there. So in the past, what we've done is we've talked about, instead of going to the Department of Transportation with every little, one-off, broken signs, and I mean, last year we saw a lot of broken signs because a lot of snow. Anyway, we see the same thing again this year, despite the fact there's a lot less snow. So what we did was we took a proactive approach from the municipality. So staff has through visuals and through basically drive-bys has collected information and has a comprehensive list, or as comprehensive as it can be, because these things change daily in some cases, a comprehensive list of missing or broken road signs in the municipality. So we feel this is a much better way to approach the Department of Transportation. It actually helps them do their job. They don't have to do that piece, and it actually it facilitates that these signs will be done efficiently, because they'll be able to order them right away. So and we felt like it was an organized way to approach our partner who we work together on a lot of projects. So the suggested motion is that council send a letter to the Department of Transportation Infrastructure, including the comprehensive list of the road signage issues, requesting that they review the list and provide response and progress report, so we can actually track the report, because we're giving them a fairly long list. Now, the other piece of work that we did was back in the day, I guess, the Conseil acadien de Par en Bas asked us to review and make changes to some of the signs that they would like to see chemin added to. So what we did, we cross-referenced that list with the signs that were broken, so that we could, if we had to change the name or request a new sign, that we wouldn't request in 3 months' time a different sign.
Yeah,
So what we would do is take this list and make sure that that it is in fact the proper wording as suggested by Conseil acadien de Par en Bas. And what we said was we would be committed to lead that project on behalf of the Conseil acadien, provided that it didn't significantly change the road name. Because if it did, then it would require the people on the road to agree to that change, as opposed to just somebody saying, well, it was historically this, therefore it should change. So we do have that list, and we will ensure that the names are appropriate and proper on the list. So that's the motion that we'd like council to consider.
I'll make a motion.
seconder, Danny? You heard the motion?
I have,
Oh, okay.
could we add, on that list, when you get to, Surratt's Island, there's the Surratt's Island sign is missing. And when you leave Surratt's Island, you go on Sluice Point, the Sluice Point sign is missing. And I see he missed that, it's still not there tonight, when I came back here to the meeting. So those are missing there. And I did call them about a year ago, if they would, because when they took the bridge out, they didn't put them on again, and, could we add those two to the list?
So those two again are,
Surratt's Island, when you get across the bridge, you're getting on Surratt's Island, Îles Surratt,
so that's immediately after the bridge.
right? And when you get off the bridge, you're in Sluice Point, obviously, with Puente Sol. And I had called him up, and Mr. Craig Smith had said he was gonna see to that, but that's been a year and a half, and he hasn't done it. I had a few Facebooks on that.
So those are the two signs, so those are just, they're probably community signs that they took off when they were doing the construction?
Absolutely.
And never
exactly.
replaced it, okay,
Right.
all right, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
So
so
you will be,
we could add that to the motion. We could add those,
Yeah, with the
Yeah,
movers
okay.
and seconders,
that's okay.
mind doing that? Thank you.
okay? Heard the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carried. Next item is the 2016-17 Community Litter Cleanup Program. I think you've seen an email that Alain sent out today. I was discussed with Alain this morning, you know, I noticed from John Sullivan that we kept the amounts the same thing last year, but some people could only do 2 kilometers. And I'm just wondering if we couldn't add a few dollars and maybe have 8 more kilometers or something like that. It would cost us, what, $1,400 or something extra. So just wondering if the council would agree to that, or it's up to you. And if you do, you can put that in the motion. I can't make a motion.
Great idea. I'd like to move that the municipality of Argyle proceed with the community litter cleanup program for the fiscal year 2016-2017 with a funding of $14,000. I had to add quick there. So that adds the 1,400 that you were.
I think it's
I don't have the
1,400,
that
right?
makes as you-
175?
In the motion it makes 175 at 80 kilometers. So you're doing 80 instead of 72 in that motion.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I meant.
Second by Councillor Albright. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. It's a good program, like I was saying the other day. It cleans our ditches, but it's all over the municipality too.
Yes.
Everybody gets the benefits and. Okay. Green Energy Committee Equipment Recommendation. This is what we recommended to the councils. I assume the other two have you heard if they have approved it or anything? No.
I'll make the
But- Yeah,
I'll make the recommended motion that the municipality district of Argyle approve the recommence, say that word for me?
It might be misspelled, but it's recommendation, I think.
Yeah, I say it is, but we'll spell it.
Yeah,
Of the Green Energy Committee with regards to the purchase of 2 GHRE power 50 kilowatt turbines for the Rose Road Confit project, and that is per the Community Renewable Energy Project. Say that one. Memorandum of understanding agrees to financial support and equal share of this project. And who wrote that?
do we have a seconder? Huh? Okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Oh,
I had a question before you. There's something I wanted to.
sorry, yeah.
It's all right. just for Richard, I'm not sure if I'm correct here or not, but the town of Yarmouth did approve this, by the way, I saw that at their meeting Thursday night. It says, Richard, Councilor Donaldson, FD 2150. So should we add that to the motion? Maybe the CAO could look at that.
Well,
See, there's two of them there, so
You're approving the recommendation of the committee.
it doesn't matter which one we get, we'll leave. Maybe I'm wrong there, Dan, I'm just saying that, because it says on the first motion, if you notice, the GEC to the municipality of Yarmouth, hold on here.
There-
If you read the black part on the top paragraph, you see that,
I
what,
see that.
they're putting FD 2150.
That is a lot easier one to read.
So should we be recommending that 2150 also, do you know? Because if they've got that in that motion.
Oh, I see.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Because the motion excludes the FD
Yes.
2150.
Thank you, Anna.
That probably should be added for clarity,
Yeah.
yes.
Just-
uh,
'Cause I remember at the meeting, that's the one we suggested from Green System Sales. That's the one we recommended to be approved.
Yeah, that would make it consistent with the recommendation, so
Okay.
there's,
I
It's-
agree with that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Richard. Thank
okay.
you, Richard. Yeah.
So,
Chris, you write it up. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
so just as for an information piece on that, if I may. Two things, number one is this, as you know, it was your number one capital project. So that will happen in fiscal 16-17, will happen this year.
Yeah.
And so the revenues generated from that, we will have to budget for that next year for the first time.
That feels good.
Yeah,
Feels good.
and we'll be using gas tax as you approved, so.
Yeah. Good. Road name change request, Pierres Lane. So, Allée Pierre Lane, and they want to change it to Pierre Lane, right? Pierres Lane.
Yes. So it's a recommendation coming from Alex, and
Yes.
I would forward that recommendation for you for approval.
Yeah. Anybody care to make a motion to?
I'll move that, the sign, or the road name, you change the sign apparently is the same, it is what it should be. I'll move that the Allée Pierre Lane be changed to Pierres Lane in Pubnico, West Pubnico.
second.
Okay. It's moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Community Hall Capital Project Grant. Is that yours, Mr. CAO?
It will be mine and Chris's, I'm sure.
Okay,
Um,
figured.
Chris is the author of this document.
Great document, great document.
It's phenomenal, and it's
Thank you.
really, well, it's a follow-up of our conversation the last meeting. So, so what I will do is, I might start on the last page, because accountants do that.
Yeah. Right. How come it's not page 3?
Well, it would be, just, I like to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
So, I'm bringing bringing you to the last page because this page was added towards the end. It wasn't, you didn't have this information all week. You had the
Oh,
14-page
yes.
document all week. So what this is an attempt to look at what has happened with major project grants over the past 3 years. Now this is in no way all-inclusive, right? This does not include you know, YMCA grants, or, you know, it doesn't include every grant. What we tried to do is take a look at the typical grants to organizations that we've approved. It says grants to organizations, but it's actually grants. It's all right, it's great. We like to keep it fresh, as I said. So $75,000 in 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, the same. Last year, if you recall, we increased the amount by $10,000 to address the capital, the priority of the community halls. But of course, every year staff notices the same thing happens, right? They, the community halls ask for a significant amount, and we give them penitence, penance, and then they may or may not finish the project they say they're going to use it for, and so they're faced with a difficult decision, like what do they do, and we're faced with the difficult decision of saying, well, do we actually ask them whether or not they did their roof when we gave them $2,500 and it actually cost 12? So it's an unusual situation that we would find, but both parties have they're, we're happy to fund them, and they're grateful for the money, but in fact they can't do what they say they're going to do with the money, and I think that's pretty obvious to everyone. So the other line items here, grant to École Belleville, last year there was a $28,000 amount. 2 years ago there was a $5,000 amount. It is an unrelated, it's not the same project, it was another project. And so the $28,000 was for the tennis court, and of course they fundraised for the remainder. So that was a one-time. Now that we may have some additional costs around that in the current year, but from a budgetary perspective, what we know today, that's not likely going to be a significant amount. So special project economic development grants, in 2013-14 was $27,313 2 years ago. This current year, it's looking like, it's budgeted for 22, but we won't spend that. And so what that typically included were, Music Week, hockey, the junior hockey, Redwood Cup. So those special events that we had the one-time requests, and the curling, which is the most recent approved amount, and also every year for the past 3 years, the Sea Kayak Symposium was recorded there. So one thing we know is the Sea Kayak Symposium will not be occurring this year, and so they're not going to do this summer. They're not doing the Sea Kayak.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's what we understood anyway. That could change, I guess, but I don't think so.
No, it's returning
2017. So they're taking a year break.
Okay.
So that drops the obligation. So what we're trying to do is manage this budget to be very similar to what it has been. We're trying to manage our budget, right? Because what this project is actually proposing is a significant increase in the funding for the clubs, okay? So the other thing that we should be looking at here is the election costs. So this is all in the same section of our budget. So this year we're dealing with an election. So last year we had the $28,000 contribution to École Belleville. This year we have probably an equivalent amount for an election. So while one goes away, another one comes, right? So so what you'll see under the proposed is that the amount is approximately the same as last year, probably $7,000 more. But keeping in mind that we are investing, I think the net amount is an additional $25,000 in grants to organizations specifically for community halls. So what we would propose is another thing that we would propose is that as part of this, to try to manage the budget, and this is of course up to council, is a lot of the district community grants that are coming to our attention are coming from clubs. And so one of the challenges we would have is if we were to do what this report says, which is to say, instead of doing little bits everywhere, we would pick 3 or 4 and do them big, right? There still might be a need for funding from the other clubs that were not successful in that current year. And so, whether you want to call it a consolation prize or whether you want to call it a small operating grant, we would provide a $500 operating grant that would have no restrictions whatsoever, that the club could use for whatever purpose that it desires. Oftentimes they actually get that through the district community grant. So what we're proposing to try to balance the budget is decrease the district community grant from $2,000 per counselor to $1,500 per counselor in this particular year. That doesn't mean forever. We're doing this to try to keep that budget number under control while at the same time, generating a fairly big increase in grants to clubs. So this is what the budget looks like. So This is subject to your approval. This is a proposition. You may not like the idea of reducing district community grants. You may prefer to keep that number where it is and deal with it a different way, and that's okay too. But we're trying to, if you look at last year, we spent $153,000 in those items. This year, we're proposing 160, and that is with the reduction. So just trying to manage that situation as best we can. So coming back to the document that Chris has put together, I guess I'll start with, are there any questions around the concept? And maybe myself or Chris could answer those questions as opposed to going in detail. You've had a chance to see what this looks like.
First of all, I'd like to,
Yes.
if you don't mind,
Okay, Councillor
Mr.
Surratt.
Chair, first of all, I'd like to address the district community grant. Maybe I'm going on a limb on this, I'm not sure, but if the district community grant were to be dropped by $500 per councillor, it could be a double whammy to your district, because the club that would, or the hall that would get a grant of the 15,000 or whatever, I was reading this document, 3 grants of 15,000. So your district, the hall or the club may not get the 15,000, then you might have a chance to give somebody $500. Then you're being taken $500 away. So you could lose double whammy.
That's
You
true.
know what I mean? And then just a point I'd like to make on that part.
I don't disagree.
yeah,
That's absolutely,
yeah.
that could absolutely happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what, just on that part, I'll have more questions as we go down the document.
Okay. Councillor Muse?
With this funding program that you're suggesting here, so the clubs would not be part of our grants to organizations as they are now to nonprofit organizations?
That's mostly correct, yes. So what we would do is we would have all of the clubs apply for the big pot of money.
Right.
So they would be considered separate from the typical grants to organizations process.
Okay.
Each of the clubs would receive some funding. Only, is it three? Is it 3 of them? Only 3 would receive the $15,000 amount.
Okay.
The others would receive each, and that's capital. That would be for capital purposes. The others that we would identify that would apply, they have to apply, would be eligible for a $500.
That's what you were just saying, yeah.
Correct. It would all come from the same pool. It would all be dealt with separately for the period of time that we're proposing this project to occur.
Right, so if a club receives the 15,000 this year, then they're not eligible for the 15,000 for another 5 years,
That is correct.
okay? So the most they would get after that, every other year, would be the 500. Is that correct? Okay.
That's the way we're proposing
Okay.
it now, yes.
Okay, but it wouldn't be the same as far as the grants that we have now, that we have the application, we have a lot of applications from the clubs, they wouldn't fit in there. They wouldn't be, this is a totally separate program
Correct.
than what we have now, and
That's right.
it puts the clubs in their own little group.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
For the duration of the grant.
pardon me?
So this wouldn't necessarily have to be permanent.
Oh,
This-
okay,
this
okay,
would be
just for,
the duration of the capital project grant.
okay,
So let's say after 4 years or 3 years, we've seen that there is no longer a need for capital project grant in any of our clubs, because we've already
then
gone.
we could go back to the,
We could go back to the
okay,
system that we have.
okay, yeah.
Or continue it, like, start giving the second round.
Yes, yes, and you can, and the advantage of that, I just wanna add to that point, because you can choose the amount, right? After the first 4 years go by, you might say, well, wow, we did a good job here. The next round, it's $10,000, right? And so you can reduce the amount of commitment, but yet you still have a tremendous impact, possibly, with the clubs, yeah.
And one thing I'd like to mention on this grant program is that the accountability and reporting would be much more stringent than the reporting accountability we have now for our grants program. So a club that would be approved for this grant, not only would they have more reporting and accountability to do, but we would guide them through the process more as well. So it would kind of be more of a partnership between them. And the grant amount would just be up to, so we wouldn't just give the full amount, whether or not they use it completely for their project or not. It's up to a maximum of 15,000
Yeah.
per grant.
Councillor Donaldson?
Has anybody identified how many buildings qualify?
So in the last 4 years, we've had up to 15 community centers apply. Within those 15, there's 3 that we wouldn't necessarily consider as a community hall. So for example, the Wedgeport Tuna Museum. It's in that category, but we, in our opinion, don't see it as a community hall. So in the last 4 years, there have been 12 community halls apply. 9 of those have been consistent. So for example, 2 of those 12, the last time they applied was 2012, and 1 of them was in 2014. So we're looking at roughly 9 community halls.
You can take number 18 off,
Yeah.
it's a private business now.
We realize that there is some changes, which is why we're saying that I consider 9 to be the number that consistently apply every year.
Mm-hmm.
So 3-year cycle would do them all.
In theory, unless there would be a new that would be built, or
Yeah,
If they
okay.
if they apply, correct.
So are the ones that are gonna be identified, are they gonna be sent this policy or?
Yeah, so our initial step would be to meet with each president or committee member of the halls, explain to them the project grant, and kind of help them through the process of either applying or finding information to apply. And then afterwards, an evaluation would be done by all of the applicants. But that would be the first step,
Yeah,
to meet with them, definitely.
okay,
I'm done. Yeah.
okay. Councillor Albright?
That was my question. I was just kind of wondering how they would get the information, if it would be us, if it would
Okay.
be staff. And so what, let's say that a community hall does not get the 15,000, doesn't qualify for the other 500, can they apply for a district community grant, or is district community grant completely off the table for them?
We would not exclude the possibility, because the district community grant is still within your direct control. If you wanted to give an extra $500 to a club, you could certainly do that.
Okay.
I would like to also point out, and I think you're thinking of clubs, I'm thinking also of other non-eligible buildings, like the Tuna Museum is possibly one of them, the Village and the Musée in Pubnico typically apply for funding under the same section.
Right.
We would not, they would have to go to the grants to organizations process.
Okay.
This is only for nonprofit community halls that I think that you would traditionally think like Club Acadien and Twin Village
And not fire
Island
halls.
and not fire halls,
No.
not museums.
Yeah.
So I realize that's a little off your question, but they would typically just continue to apply for the grants to organizations. Those clubs that are not eligible anymore for that would qualify for the $500. We would not refuse them if they applied in
Okay,
the new category. They're absolutely guaranteed, if they apply, to get the $500.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right. Okay.
Okay. Councillor Surratt?
There's a question I've got. I read the report, and it says matching funds. So therefore, if somebody applied for $15,000, that club would have to match the 15, am I understanding? Okay, I understood that, I didn't understand it right. Because it says matching funds, and I didn't, let me go see where it says.
That might have just been added, it's not matching funds.
It's, because anyhow, I'll dig it up.
Okay, thank you.
Matching funds.
I'm not sure where it reads that, but we when we doing our planification, we said that it would by exercising this project now, the fact that the federal government is accelerating some capital projects to come out, this may provide the opportunity to double that money insofar as provincial or federal funding opportunities. we don't expect the clubs to match $15,000.
I was gonna say,
That's,
but some of us would
we,
just hold out.
well, all of you, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any club
No,
that's
right.
sitting on 15 grand, very few.
Yeah.
So maybe one. So anyway, but that being said, the matching, if there's any reference to it, it is meaning that we could match with provincial or federal to try to double the project.
Yeah, okay.
Financial investment in community facilities from other sources, where it says general funding criteria.
Okay, all right.
Councillor Muse?
Yeah, I think that was basically the question, because all I was gonna ask was, is this that 15,000 a percentage of the total project? They don't, you know, it's not a percentage up to 15,000, they get 15,000, or whatever it costs, up to 15,000.
Correct.
Thank you.
And maybe I could add to that, Alain, if you went and Chris, or anybody else, funding allocation, so that's on 1, 2, 3. So, funding out, if you flip the page where you see a picture in the middle, people sitting on a grass and tents, right above that, it says verification of matching funds.
Yeah, that's incorrect.
That's what it, so I had read that right then.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's there, but it's incorrect.
it's, okay, do you see that, Alain?
Yes, I do, and
Okay.
that should not be there.
Oh, okay, very good, that's what my concern, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Councillor Donaldson?
I just wanted to add to what Guy said earlier, I'm in favor of leaving it at 2,000 per councillor. I have the same 4 community groups, I do the same for every year, year after year. And it's primarily for lawnmower gas and keeping 3 graveyards mowed and a park, so. To drop one of them would, well, I wouldn't drop one, I'd lower it, give them less, but I mean, $500 don't go very far in the run of a whole summer. So, I'm in favor, I think we should find it somewhere else, maybe the airport, I don't know, somewhere.
$400 each.
I just want to be clear to council, we will effort to find it somewhere else if that's your intention.
Yes.
What we tried to do was to take a look at that particular section of the budget, which we have groupings, right? So we're trying to control the grouping. It's not if, you
Not
know.
a deal breaker.
No, it's a bit of a, you know, I'm applying science where maybe I should have applied art. You know, there's no issue with that if that's your preference. We may consider re-examining, however, the economic development grant and taking a sharper pencil on that one. Perhaps that number needs to come down, you know, to
Okay.
accommodate
To-
what you'd like to do in your communities, right? Because those are typically not in our community, they're typically regional in nature.
Okay, thank you.
So one only, you know, there's a lot of information I realize. In our conversation at the staff level, we made a point to say that Charlene would absolutely not be involved in the evaluation of the applications on purpose. Because what we'd want Charlene to do is to be able to assist those that are applying and to perhaps find additional matching funds. That's the community development piece that we feel should be separate from a decision being made by others. So what we're recommending around the decision is that there would be a small group of staff, primarily recreation, finance, administration, public works, you know, representing different departments with different interests. You know, recreation, it's obvious that some of these clubs are used for recreational purposes, and so they could add value to, they could confirm what is actually happening in these clubs and that they're active, right? So, and that is one of the measures, that these clubs have to have regular activity. They're not just an empty shell all the time, you know, so the more activity, the more organization, the more volunteer involvement, the higher the probability that you'll be first. Doesn't mean that you won't be, it's just that you will be, you know, higher on the list in terms of priority as to when it happens. The only other, yeah, so I guess that's it. And of course, the recommendation would have to be approved by council. Council makes the decision. And so we will not be, you know, what would be important for council to understand before we get into the evaluation process, and this is subject to change, is that the evaluation criteria be accepted by you in advance, so that we're not having a conversation at the end that can be different. And so what you're all thinking, I'm sure, is how is my district going to be impacted by this change,
Absolutely.
because you're all representing your districts. So bring your concerns to us, bring them here, bring them to the staff, and so that we can try to figure out how do we address that piece around the decision-making criteria. Is it a decision-making criteria or not? But let's make a decision in advance so that we're not, at the end, thinking about those things. We should be thinking about those things now, okay? So that's the concept. Clearly, I mean, we have some adjustments, some small adjustments to make around, the application and all that stuff, but I guess I'll defer to Chris, what would your expectation be of council tonight, based on your report?
Really, it was just to present the draft grant, for discussion, for comments. There's obviously a couple changes that we're going, like Alan said, mentioned, that we're going to make, but this was more or less just for information and presentation.
So,
Oh.
sorry, the only thing I'd add to that is if this is something that you are interested in doing, that would be nice to hear now, because then we would, if this isn't the concept that you like, then we would scrap it. But if conceptually that you think that this is going to be a positive project for your communities, then that would be great to have that by motion, not to approve the way it looks, but to approve the intent, and then we can really, make sure that we identify any issues that you might have before we finalize this thing, because we're gonna wanna roll it out pretty fast once we.
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
we
I
have
suppose.
time to put some input on some questions, some wording and some stuff, where would that come in on my part then, or any of the other councillors? So if, there's no problem to improve, I think this is a great document, but I'm wondering, there's some stuff here that I'd like to go over with, especially with council, I have a few questions, but
So we're looking
when
to
will
have
we
it,
do that?
we're looking to have it approved for
They
the
are
regular
soon.
council meeting of March?
I think we want to, if this is the intention, we make that a motion today,
Yeah,
and that the intention, it would be almost like a notice of motion, almost like a
Yeah,
notice of motion.
yeah.
Like there would be a clear motion that we're going to implement this plan. But that the final would be presented to council by the next meeting. In between, we would, what we could do is, you all have a copy of it the way it looks. If you have comments, if you have changes, then what I would suggest is that you provide those changes at any time. If you want a sit-down meeting, you request it. Yeah, to Chris. If you have a sit-down meeting, you wanna have a sit-down meeting to talk about, what does this mean or that mean, we can organize that in advance, just ask for it. If you just wanna provide, grammatical changes or delete this, or why is that here, you can actually just submit that and not have to spend a lot of time talking about it.
yeah.
The only other item is that I'd like for you to focus on is, how do we decide? Because we're gonna wanna make that decision that's consistent with your intent. So at the end of the day, we need to be clear on that. That's an important piece for us, because we don't wanna make it something it's not at the end. So I would focus on that. We're actually gonna do the same. We're gonna look it through in a deeper way. We didn't wanna do that too much before we understood your intentions.
Okay. Richard?
I'm fully in agreement with this, this new programming. And, I would suggest somehow trying to keep some of the politics out of it. So I'm gonna use an example, let's say year one, 6 applications, they all qualify, they're all good applications, right? I would like to see 3 of them, like 3 would be picked, right? How, I don't know, maybe draw straws. But the 3 other ones would be assured that they are qualified and they would be in the next year.
Absolutely.
Where are you going, Richard?
And, so, yeah, so keep,
I think what Alan is asking for is for, you want to set up criteria so that it wouldn't get to be a political decision.
no, but I'm gonna say, we'll say there's more than 3 that qualify
Oh,
the
yeah.
first round, and there probably will be, because it's something new, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean, instead of us getting into a political fight over who gets what, draw straws, or the 3 strongest, or the staff make the decision, and then the next 3, if they qualify, they'll be notified and know that they'll be getting their money in the following year under this program, because we're gonna run it for at least 3 years.
Yeah. We,
So,
we did talk about that.
If you look in the document, there is actually the application
system.
evaluation
Oh,
matrix that
that's
the evaluation committee would
Yeah.
use. So it would give not necessarily the final decision, but it would help the committee decide and rank the applications, which would ultimately come to you in the
Come to
end.
council as a recommendation.
That's right.
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, there's also the reality that the grants to organization traditionally is a political decision, right? So we don't want to necessarily eliminate that as as an option for you. You know, another alternative, and I don't wanna get too micro, but maybe it's too late, is you could have a top 6. I mean, the cream will rise to the top in these applications, no question. And there might actually be 6 that look really good. It would be difficult for us to decide. We could have the 6 do presentations. And so you could rank those presentations as an independent rank outside of the traditional process. So we would evaluate the application, but you would evaluate the presentation. And so that's another alternative. But I think
Well-
Councillor Donaldson's point on, if you have 6 and you pick 3, if you assure the other 3 that they'll be in
Yes.
next year, that is the right thing to do.
That's the right thing to
But
do.
you will
Yeah.
also, I assume you'll be looking also at the need, eh?
Yes.
If you have
urgency.
a roof that's leaking,
Yeah,
you're not gonna wait 2 years.
no, I mean, I think that will become very clear
Yeah, it
when
will,
the
yeah, I'm
applications
sure,
come
yeah.
in, like,
Yeah.
one of the criteria is the urgency.
Urgency, yeah, of
You know,
course.
we wanna protect these buildings, right,
yeah.
we don't wanna, yeah. So,
Councillor Surratt.
I just have maybe one thing before we go with that intent, and I might be far-fetched on this, it's on the first page. Organization eligible for funding. It says has to be a minimum of 5 years, and the hall in Hubbard's Point, that's been more than 5 years, Dan, yeah? Yeah, that's been more than that. Yeah, no, the club in Hubbard's Point, yeah, that's been there for quite a while, right? Oh, my God, yeah, oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
So anybody wanting to build, which I can't see, would not qualify. Somebody want to build a hall, but I mean, I don't see
They-
anything happening like that.
the projects that are eligible for funding are facility expansion. So if they wish to expand, and that's their priority, they would be eligible.
Yeah,
Retrofit existing, renovate existing,
Yeah.
retrofit or renovate existing facility. And then there's some equipment possibilities also, technological upgrades and capital equipment. So we're gonna probably reword some of the eligibility piece, but it's not for new buildings. It's to support the ones that are already in our communities, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept community hall, capital project grant, like the concept, make a motion on the concept and move forward from here and try to get this in place and passed for this upcoming budget.
yeah,
I'll second it.
okay. Been moved and seconded. All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Good. Next item is mowing of derelict ballfields.
They're involved in- Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just didn't want this maybe to be forgotten. And I didn't know if I should bring it up or not, because I know it was brought up at our priority setting, so I just want to be sure, I mean, that was not one of the priorities. I know there was quite a discussion on it, and we kind of all agreed together, and our CEO was there, and Chris was there, so I just didn't want it to fall off, and I just wondered if the motion should be made for you to look at it, or if the consensus around was that you would be looking at it and bring a report back to council. That was my only question. I didn't want it to fall off the turnip truck, I guess.
Right.
I don't know if this is the right thing to do, or if that was good enough in our priority setting. You said yes, I'll be looking at it, we are on agreement. If it's good for the community, for exercise and that, so should
I think it should be something that is brought here. So I can share with you first where we're at,
Yes.
and then you can decide whether or not how to approach it from the councillor's perspective.
Yeah.
So the fields that we mow now are primarily fields that we own, but not exclusively. So we do so East Pubnico Ballfield, the West Pubnico Ballfield we do not own. East Pubnico we do. There's no activity at the East Pubnico field, but we do, well, no significant activity, but we do mow it. We mow the playground in Wedgeport that we own. We mow the Wedgeport field, which technically we own, Ballfield, Tusket again. So, and we do mow at Panamba, we do not own that. We mow because it's part of our obligation with the track and field to do that. We also mow our own, obviously our own facilities here. So we had certain fields that we decided at some point not to mow, and that was primarily because of lack of resources. But our priorities have changed slightly since then, and our staff complement is about to change. So what I would suggest to you is that the current scenario is that we will be having a field coordinator, field maintenance coordinator, facility maintenance coordinator, who is Dwayne Allen, who is our full-time person. He will be training for wastewater management also. And that was the intent of, that was why we had him, that position, not him, that position full-time, because we needed somebody to do some work on the Tusket wastewater system. We will be engaging a student and a full-time casual person to assist in field maintenance this year. So that's one additional resource which will allow us the opportunity to perhaps do some of the things that your community is asking for. Our priority that we would be presenting to council would be our own facilities. They would be preventative maintenance around tennis courts where, you know, you've seen, you know, the roots grow and nobody doing anything around that and it ruins. So we have a plan to use our own resources to do preventative maintenance around those facilities, including the ball field. So we have every indication, every intention to do a better job this year than we did last year. So insofar as those requests are concerned, I think we did agree that we would look at that as an option. And so what I think I would require from this council, if they want to look into that, is a motion to add that as a consideration in our budget deliberations, because we have to do planning around that. So if that's something that is of interest of council, I think a motion would help staff do that for you. Yeah.
I certainly like to make that motion that we look at fields that could possibly use for recreation, for other activities, if there's on a request basis, maybe. I don't know if I should add that in, or on a request basis, because if they're not requested, why would we go do them, I guess, to add more expense?
Yeah.
But anyhow, I guess my motion would be that we look into the possibility of mowing the fields that are being used for recreation purposes. Doesn't mean they have to be used on a full-time basis, and upon request. And we look at it individually. But does that give you enough leeway to give you a budget, kind of a budget item there to work with? I know of one, which is Threads Island, but I wouldn't want to just name the Threads Island one. You know, if there's other requests and they're valid, and then, like, I remember Councillor Dawson mentioned, you know, if they want to do some recreation activities, you know, why not let them, the young children do that?
Definitely.
But, you know, anyhow, that's what my motion would be, I guess, is
Okay.
my request.
Have a seconder? Can you repeat the motion? Seconder?
Repeat it twice in French.
All those in favour signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
And so we'll probably bring that by policy.
Yeah,
I think a small, very small policy on, you know, how it works.
yeah,
Then the communities will know exactly what the process is. You'll be able to approve the policy, you won't have to worry about it again.
yeah,
Yeah.
good. All right. Next, we're going to correspondence, and for information, the next three items, Western Counties Regional Library minutes of December the 10th, 2015, Mariners Center minutes of January the 20th, 16, and the Waste Check Enforcement Officer report. Anybody have any questions or anything, comments on those three items? They're for information only. not, we'll go on to financial requests. There's district community grants. I see 3 listed here. First one is the Club Social des Îles.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I could maybe talk on that one. I guess it's in my district. And they're, the Club Social des Îles, they decided finally with some of the money they got from the grants from here, this couple of years old, but finally did do the siding. And the signage is really deplorable there. So they've identified it costs roughly $500 for a new sign, and I guess they're asking for $500, and I certainly make that motion.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. West Pubnico Athletic Association.
So moved.
Second.
Athletic Association. This is the, that's not the health club. Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Pubnico Point Trail Association.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next, we'll go on to notice of motion. Does anybody have a notice of motion for a future meeting?
I don't know if it's a notice of motion, it's a notice of something, though. I just sent Ellen some information that I've been looking over here tonight, I found on the internet, and it's used quite commonly across Canada, a way to calculate the property transfer tax. Did you see what I?
D-transfer?
The D-transfer, did you get the email?
I hope it did.
And I was wondering if you would like to look at that and compare it to what it would mean based on the deed transfers last year. It's a graduated system, like it's 0.5% up to 55,000, 1% from 55,000 to 250,000, and after 250,000, what's it, 1.5%? And then it goes up to 2, doesn't it? After
It does.
a large amount of money. And it's used, that's the way it's calculated in a lot of places across Canada. Like Ontario, for example, has a provincial deed transfer, so it applies across the province for every municipality.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm just wondering if it's something we want to look at before the next budget. If it loses us money, we'll leave it the way it is, we're 1% straight across the board, right?
We are 1% straight across the board. The MGA has certain restrictions as to how far you can go. I'm not sure that the MGA currently allows a graduated rate. You're raising this at a very timely, it's very timely that you're raising this, because this section of the MGA regarding de-transfer taxes is being reviewed as a high priority section for expansion of opportunity to do a little bit different. So I can compare it to, I can certainly show you the numbers and show you like how it would have impacted us, let's say in the last 2 years. I can do that. If
No, I was just, early when we was talking about the budget, my curiosity piqued, so I went online here, so this is just all developed tonight. I see the Nova Scotia numbers, like some are as high as 1.75 or 1.5 or something like that. But there's none that have a graduated system, but most other provinces do.
yes.
So, just something that I thought you might wanna look into before we do the budget. And, one other item, that we have to discuss, but I'm gonna wait till after the adjournment. Me and Guy might wanna mention it, and you know what I'm talking about. And Kathy and Nicole, Pubnico doctors, Pubnico medicals.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you for that. Question period?
Few and far apart tonight.
Oh. I've had it.
Get my duct tape.
Oh, I forgot to mention, at the beginning of the meeting, regrets. We had regrets from the deputy warden and councillor Murphy.
Yes.
Probably, I'm sure it's work-related. That's it?
Motion to adjourn.
I'd just like to mention yesterday at the industrial commission's meeting,